Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to unpack something that is just incredibly relatable, but honestly, it's profoundly misunderstood. We're talking about the deep, underlying psychological reasons why so many of us look at our bank accounts at the end of the month and just see nothing. If you've ever felt like your money literally slips through your fingers, no matter how hard you try to hold on to it, well, you're absolutely in the right place. We're going to move way past the basic math today and figure out how our emotions are secretly pulling the strings on our wallets. Okay, let's just dive right in. I want you to put yourself in a very specific, visceral, and let's be real, pretty uncomfortable situation. Imagine it's the 28th of the month. You log in, you look at your bank account, and it is just running on fumes. There's barely a fraction of what you started with. But here's the kicker. Your salary just hit on the 1st. It hasn't even been 30 days yet. And, that brings out this universally confusing question. You stare at your transaction history and you're thinking, wait, I didn't make any massive purchases, so where did my money actually go? You scroll through the app, right? There's a tiny online order here, maybe a quick food delivery there, a little minor shopping. Every single thing was small. Honestly, nothing seemed completely useless in the moment. But suddenly, you add it all up and your entire month's salary has just vanished into thin air. Now, when we're faced with that empty account, our brains usually jump straight to this completely false self-diagnosis. We tell ourselves, I'm just bad at math. I just can't manage money. But listen, if this feels like your story, I want you to stop right there. The absolute truth is you are not bad at numbers. I mean, think about it. You probably do complex calculations at your job, you manage projects, you figure out crazy logistics for your family every single day. You can handle basic math, for sure. So a lack of mathematical skill, that is definitely not the real issue here. And that brings us to the actual core of the problem. Let's call it the math myth. See, we tend to treat saving like it's this purely logical equation, income minus expenses equals savings. Simple. But the emotional reality is completely different. Money is almost never just a number. It's deeply, deeply attached to our feelings. For so many of us, spending is actually just a subconscious response to daily exhaustion, to stress, or even loneliness. So, when we talk about emotional spending, think about coming home absolutely exhausted and just ordering that expensive takeout. You aren't actually just buying noodles, right? You're buying a temporary feeling of relief. You are effectively paying a stress tax because your brain is screaming, hey, I survived that awful meeting today, I deserve a treat. Almost every small, unnecessary expense is really just an answer to an emotion. It's an escape from a stressful or boring day rather than fulfilling an actual physical need. But oh man, here is the inescapable trap that follows. It's the hidden shame cycle. So, step 1, you spend money on an impulse. Step 2, you look at your balance later and feel this intense shame and guilt. You think, ugh, I did it again. But step 3? Step 3 is the real kicker. Because you feel so bad about yourself, your brain desperately wants to soothe that negative emotion. And what's the easiest, most familiar way your brain knows how to feel better? Buying something else. You literally spend more money to escape the bad feeling caused by spending money in the first place. It is this vicious loop that just plays on repeat month after month. So to break this cycle, we really need to look deeper at a pretty fascinating concept. A lot of the time, we think the gap between people who save easily and people who are always broke is just the income difference. Like, it's just about how much money they make. But the real gap? It's the identity difference. It's about who you fundamentally believe you are. People who save naturally have this deep internal belief that says, I am someone who secures my future. And that core belief quietly guides all of their daily micro-decisions. On the flip side, so many of us are carrying around these totally false financial beliefs, and they're usually rooted super deep in our childhoods. We tell ourselves things like, well, saving isn't really my responsibility, or I just don't get numbers, or a really, really common one, my family always struggled financially, so, I will too. These are false narratives, guys, but they feel so incredibly real that we just accept them as the absolute truth. And here's the harsh reality. As long as you hold on to those beliefs, literally no budgeting app or fancy finance spreadsheet is ever going to work for you. Why? Because you are swimming directly against the current of your own identity. Let's actually look at a really fascinating case study that brings this whole thing to life. Let's consider a young woman who grew up in a typical middle-class home. As a kid, she constantly watched her mom stress over money in the last week of every single month. There was always this thick, heavy tension in the air about what money would be left over. Fast forward to her adulthood, this young woman now makes a really great income. But subconsciously, she perfectly recreated that exact same pattern.
Her last week of the month was always filled with stress, a totally empty bank account, and that exact same old refrain of, I just don't know how to manage money. Her turning point finally came when a friend asked her this incredibly simple yet completely profound question. The friend just asked, how does it feel when you actually have money saved? Her answer to that was a massive psychological breakthrough. She literally said, it feels abnormal, like something is wrong and I just need to spend it. I mean, think about how wild that is. Because of her childhood environment, an empty bank account, and financial stress, that was her baseline. To her brain, that felt normal. Actually having surplus money sitting there felt wrong. It felt chaotic. So she would subconsciously sabotage her own savings and drain her funds just to get back to that familiar, stressful baseline she grew up with. So how do you even begin to fix a psychological block that goes that deep? Well, her solution was actually brilliantly simple. She made a really firm promise to herself that she wasn't going to repeat her mother's story. Instead of trying to create some massive, overwhelming budget spreadsheet, she just picked a tiny, entirely painless amount, just 500 rupees. And the exact moment her salary hit her account, she transferred that tiny amount straight into savings without even thinking about it. It was so small, she literally didn't feel the pinch in her daily lifestyle at all. But the absolute crucial point is what she did next. See, the magic wasn't actually in the 500 rupees. It was the fact that she paired this tiny physical action with a brand new, empowering internal sentence. Every single time she made that transfer, she told herself, I am the kind of person who secures my future. And you know what? Over the course of just 3 months, this tiny habit completely rewired her identity. Because her core belief about who she was had changed, her daily spending decisions just automatically started to align with that new identity. Now let's break this down into 3 super practical steps you can use right now to rewrite your own financial story. Step 1 is what we call the power of the pause. Right before you make an impulse purchase, right before you hit that buy now button or order that late night takeout, just pause. Take a breath and ask yourself, wait, why am I actually buying this? Is this a genuine physical need? Or am I just trying to calm down a difficult emotion? And here's the cool part. You don't even have to deny yourself the purchase every single time. Just asking the question creates a mental pause. And inside that little pause, you immediately regain your power of choice. Okay, step 2 is determining your painless amount. You need to pick a tiny sum to save automatically the very second you get paid. It could be 100, maybe 500 rupees, or whatever currency you use. Just make it an amount so incredibly small that you won't even miss it. Remember, it is absolutely not about the volume of money right now. Doing this proves to your brain that consistency matters way, way more than the actual amount when you're trying to build a new habit. And step 3, which is honestly arguably the most important one, is the identity mantra. You absolutely must attach a new narrative to the physical act of saving your money. Every single time that automatic transfer happens, tell yourself, I am someone who secures my future. By tying this positive affirmation directly to a physical action, you're allowing this new identity to slowly, gradually override all those old childhood scripts. Eventually, it just becomes your new permanent reality. So I want to wrap up this explainer with a really vital reminder. If you frequently find yourself staring at a totally empty bank account at the end of the month, please know this. Your past financial struggles, they are not your fault. You've simply been playing out an old story and an old identity. But as we've seen today, that can absolutely be changed. Your bank balance tells the story of your past, but what is your story going to be tomorrow? Because once you change that narrative in your mind, I promise you, the numbers in your bank account will inevitably follow. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Honestly, talking about this makes me want to go start writing my own new financial story today.